Welcome to the Patriots Prayer Podcast, where truth has no filter and darkness doesn't get a pass. We expose the evil they hide to government corruption, from deep state deception to the sick agenda of global elites. While the mockingbird media stays silent, we speak up, we show the receipts, and we pull back the curtain on everything they don't want you to see. If you want the truth they're terrified of, you're in the right place.
Patriots, welcome to this edition of the Patriots Prayer Podcast, where we refuse to kneel to the spirit of this age and where truth is never for sale. I'm your host, Eddie Smith, and you're listening right now. It means that you still believe. America is worth fighting for. And today, we stand in a moment that history books will either bury or spotlight, depending on whether men like you and me stay silent or we stand up. Because today we just witnessed what happens when power tries to chain the will of the people and fails. The Supreme Court, in a decision they'll rant about for years to come, has told these activist judges your days of ruling the entire nation from your tiny little courtroom are over. It's done. And if you think that the enemy's just going to roll over, you don't know evil. Evil never retreats willingly. It hides, it regroups, it crawls through loopholes and bribes weak men. It weaponizes fear and controls free people. That's the reality. And it's why we pray. It's why we fight. While the establishment pretends that they're the guardians of democracy, they panic when real democracy actually shows up. When a president says, "We the people," not "we the ruling class," they use rogue judges, paid protests, and big tech censors to shut you up and shut him down. But today, that scheme took a bullet. The walls cracked, the ground shifted, and now the same people who called themselves defenders of the rule of law are crying because they can't block the will of the voters. Coast to coast with one single pen stroke. This is how it happened, and it's bigger than Trump. It's bigger than birthright citizenship. It's bigger than any one executive order. This is about who runs America. Unelected activists in black robes or free men and women under God. I'm going to take I'm going to break this ruling down for you. We're going to talk about what's next for immigration, how the deep state will strike back, or how the Democrats are already scheming to twist the law into new shapes to stop this momentum. And most importantly, we're going to remember this truth. Our hope is not in the courts, Congress, or kings. Our hope is in the Lord. And while we stand, we pray, because we know evil doesn't just fade. It has to be driven out by the light. So if you came here today hoping for some sugarcoating sound bites and that's it, you're in for a surprise. You're in the wrong place. But if you came ready to pray bold prayers, speak the truth, and offend liars, stand your ground while you're at it like free men should, then you're right where you belong. I'm Eddie Smith, and this is the Patriots Prayer Podcast, and together we are going to finish this fight. Guys, I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back.
Welcome to Shop with America, where the emphasis is on America. Our movement is to switch away from your shopping with the big box stores and the mega corporations back to supporting family-owned, made in America. We've been giving these big box stores our money every day for years. But what's happened is they forced many small businesses to shut down. We call this the illusion of choice, We see all these products in these stores, but in reality, it's only a few companies that control it all. There are thousands of lawsuits for health damage because they put profit over our people. But there is another choice. We found a better way. There's a family-owned American factory with product integrity and have always done things the right way for the right reasons. And this company outperforms the big box stores. That's due to their month-to-month shopping club. They make everyday consumer products that we all use and buy again and again, like toothpaste, shampoo, coffee, and organic beef. Go to shopwithamerica.us today.
So, Patriots, let's talk about what really did happen today. The Supreme Court, in a 6-3 ruling, handed down a decision that's sending shockwaves through the entire political establishment, because for decades, these activist judges have held a power that they were never meant to wield. The power to block an entire nation with the stroke of a pen, to override the will of the people and the authority of a duly elected president. That power was called a nationwide injunction. And let me tell you exactly how that worked. One judge in one liberal district could wake up and decide the president's policy is unconstitutional. Not just for the people who sued, but for every man, woman, and child in America. And that's not justice. That's tyranny cloaked in judicial robes. But today, the Supreme Court finally decided enough is enough. In this ruling, they declared that federal judges no longer have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions. Their decisions are now limited to actual plaintiffs standing before them as the Constitution actually intended. And this isn't just legal technicality, folks. This is everything, because it means that the President Trump and his policies, from immigration enforcement to executive orders, can no longer be blocked on a nationwide stance by a single activist judge who hates his face and wants to see him fail. That's simple. Let's remember why this actually matters. Trump issued an executive order to restrict birthright citizenship, saying that children born to illegal immigrants on American soil should not automatically be granted citizenship. It makes sense, right? Citizenship is a privilege, not a loophole for people to exploit. But immediately, 3 judges issued a nationwide injunction, shutting it down across all 50 states. They overrode the president, they overrode Congress, and they overrode you, the American people who elected him to enact these very policies. That's why this ruling is a game changer. Now, instead of one judge dictating to 330 million Americans, their ruling only applies to specific parties who actually sued. Which means Trump's policies can move forward everywhere else in the country. That's what the founders actually intended. Checks and balances, not black robe kings making like nationwide decrees from district court benches. But if you want to know the truth, this isn't just a win for Trump. It's a win for America's constitutional order, because if one unelected judge can block an entire nation, then we don't have a republic anymore. We have an oligarchy of lawyers where the will of the people is irrelevant. And here's the deeper spiritual truth, Patriots. This victory shows that God is still at work in the affairs of men, because evil never retreats without a fight, and tyranny never yields its power willingly, because every so often truth breaks through, and every so often the wall cracks, and the schemes of the wicked are exposed for exactly what they are. an assault on freedom, on order, and on the image of God stamped into every human life. So today, as we stand here witnessing this ruling, just remember, this isn't the end of the fight. This is just a sign that God is not done with America yet. But he's calling us to stand, to pray, and to refuse to bow to idols of judicial tyranny and activist overreach. Because our hope isn't in courts. It's not in presidents or in policies alone. Our hope is in Jesus Christ, the King of Kings, who rules with justice and righteousness. And he's called us to finish this fight. Now, I love how they started out and how Bondi came out. Just take a listen.
The entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country.
Folks, 5 districts in the entire country were holding the rest of us hostage. Imagine that. Do you think that's what our founders intended? Do you think that that's constitutional? That all they need to do is find one justice to bribe, one corrupt person, one person that they can blackmail. And just with one, they can hold up the entire Constitution. A president's rulings become powerless. That's exactly the system that we had in place until today. So this is a day that will go down in the history of America. And I'm sure that the left are fuming right now, trying to figure a way around this, trying to figure out how to use it to their advantage. They're already talking up this No Kings 2.0 protest, whatever you want to call it, that they're going to have on Independence Day, right? They're going to do this on July 4th. I say we hijack their rally and we actually go protest No Kings, because there are no more kings in the federal court system. That's what we should hijack this. Every red-blooded American should take to the streets and celebrate the fact that there are actually no more kings in these judicial courts that are able to override the will of the people and the president, override the will of the Constitution, to make your vote not count at all. That's what we should be celebrating. And that's exactly what we should do. So listen to Trump as he actually explains the kind of deeper meaning behind what birthright citizenship was and what it was actually originally intended for.
Birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years, but they've used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in, and what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We are going to get into some of the other rulings that took place. For one, parents actually have the right to be parents now, and the school doesn't get to teach trans ideology. More on that as soon as we get back.
Since 2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, like pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by A.J. Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Ents, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
So, Patriots, let's talk a bit about the actual truth. Because while the news cycle spins itself into oblivion, something happened that cuts right to the heart of this whole nation's actual future. Today, the Supreme Court handed parents back their God-given authority over their own children. Imagine that, in a ruling that sends shockwaves through the progressive education establishment. The court decided that parents have the right to opt their kids out of forced gender ideology indoctrination in the classroom. Let me say this again. The court ruled that your children belong to you. Imagine that. And not the state, not the teachers' unions, not the activists writing new pronoun policies in secret rooms, because that's what's been happening for years. Public schools have been telling parents, you don't get a say. They've hidden gender transition plans, forced kids to adopt new names without parental consent, and threatened to call CPS on any parent who dared to say, that's my son, that's my daughter. I know who God made them to be. But today, the Supreme Court said, it's the end of that. Enough. They ruled that schools cannot override the parents' rights by forcing children into gender ideology lessons against their family's moral, religious, or even personal beliefs. You know exactly what that means. It means truth just took back a beachhead in this cultural war. It means parents no longer have to choose between compromising their faith or keeping their kids enrolled in schools, although there's some stuff, who knows. It means teachers' unions and activists, as well as administrators, just got a reminder that they are public servants, not many dictators, indoctrinating the next generation. But let me be clear, Patriots, this ruling isn't the end of the fight. It's just the first victory in a much bigger war for the hearts and minds of our children, because evil, once again, will never retreat willingly. It adapts. It finds new tactics, new policies, new backdoor agendas. That's why it's on us, me and you, to stand guard, because the Bible is very clear about this. Train up your child in the way he or she should go, and when he is old enough, he will not depart from it. The world wants your kids confused, divided, depressed, easy to control, but God wants them bold, whole, and anchored in an unchanging truth that he created them fearfully and wonderfully in his image, male and female, with purpose and value, and nothing can erase that. So parents, do not back down. You are called by God to steward your children's souls, not a teacher, not a counselor, not a bureaucrat in a windowless office. You. And today the Supreme Court reminded America of what God already decreed from the very beginning. Your children are yours to raise and not theirs to reprogram. This is a day to stand, to give thanks, and to commit ourselves to the next battle, because we will not surrender our children to confusion and lies. We will not hand over the next generation to darkness, not without a damn fight. As long as I have this mic, I will keep reminding you of this truth. Evil will never retreat without a fight, but light always drives out darkness. So keep that in mind. I have some clips here that I'm going to show you about this trans ruling, and they're classic. I absolutely love them.
Ruling that parents with religious objections can pull their kids out of public school lessons that use LGBTQ materials. Pam brought it up. Your reaction to that ruling today, sir?
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am surprised that it went this far. It took us to bring life back to normal. Yeah. So wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give.
You know, I've said that over and over again. I grew up in this country. And the generation that was around when I was younger would have lost their damn minds. People would have been fighting in the streets. This would have never happened. I'm sorry to say, this could not have ever happened. So when he says, I'm surprised it got this far, he's not wrong. He is not wrong. What happened? What happened to us that we allowed it to even get to a place where we have this ridiculous argument with people?
So wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give you back your parental rights. They were taken away, and this is a tremendous victory for parents. Yeah.
So here is the other one where he actually he goes in a little further on this.
But it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that.
So we're allowed to say it's dangerous again. How about that? Imagine that. Us being able to say that a teacher, a shaper of young minds, is no longer allowed to groom and indoctrinate your child, that it's dangerous. The crazy part about that is, inasmuch as we will say over and over again that it is dangerous, the federal courts will now give us the right to say that the ruling has came down. Many social media platforms will probably still ding you for saying it. They'll probably still strike you for saying what the Supreme Court ruled. The next thing that needs to change is Section 230. We need the right to free speech. It wasn't long ago that I read just something that was entered into the Congressional Record, January 10th, 1963, about the 45 points of communism from the book The Naked Communist. And it was the 45 points of things they needed to do in order to establish communism in the United States of America. It was 100% right. It was 100% true. But yet, it got taken off of TikTok as disinformation. It was not disinformation. Many other people, when I put it on X, fact-checked the post. They fact-checked it. Thank you for fact-checking it, because all the fact checks came back. I was 100% correct. Everything that I read was 100% true. So, you know, when we can speak the truth and social media companies no longer have the right, the ability, or the authority to stop us, that's when we have our free speech back. That's when we've won. Right now, we still have a big fight in front of us. A very big fight. Talk about something the media doesn't want you to understand at all. Tariffs. For years, every so-called expert on CNN, MSNBC, they all told us that if Trump ever dared to impose tariffs on China or anyone else for that matter, the entire economy would collapse. They screamed, tariffs will cause inflation. They'll hurt American families. They'll destroy jobs. But what happened? The exact opposite happened. Trump imposed tariffs, and now inflation has dropped to zero. Let that sink in. Let that actually sink in. It dropped to zero. My light changed on me. So let me fix that light real quick. It looks a little better. How about that? Because, Patriots, when you finally put America first, when you stop letting globalist corporations outsource every job to countries that hate our guts, when you protect your own industry and your own people, something amazing happens. The economy stabilizes for the working class instead of the ruling class. Now, Trump said in 2 weeks, he's going to make a decision on new tariffs. You know what that tells me? It tells me this man is still thinking strategically. He's watching, he's calculating, he's moving pieces on the board while the left is too busy crying over pronouns and climate slogans. These so-called economists have been wrong over and over again. They told us under Trump, the economy would collapse instead of the boom that we've seen. They told us Bidenflation would be transitory. Instead, it devoured your paycheck, your savings, your retirement. They told us tariffs were dangerous, but the only danger was their globalist buddies were getting rich off slave labor and trade deficits. And don't even get me started on the media. They're not just wrong, they're traitors to the truth. Every single day, they parroted the same fear. Tariffs will kill the American consumer. Meanwhile, Trump was slashing taxes, renegotiating trade deals, and forcing countries to pay their fair share. He was rebuilding an economy for the forgotten men and women of this country, for you, truck drivers, welders, small business owners, farmers, and factory workers. Here's the reality the media will never say out loud. Tariffs aren't about punishment. They're about protection. Protection from economic warfare, from nations like China dumping cheap goods to kill our industry, from globalist politicians who sold your future to people with big donor checks. For far too long, America was run by leaders who hated the very people that they were elected to protect. Trump has flipped the script. He made it clear that America will no longer be a doormat for the world. And now he has prepared these new tariff decisions. And he says in 2 weeks, the fear mongering has already begun within the 2 weeks. But here's what they won't tell you. Patriots, these tariffs will do what they did before. Strengthen America, empower American workers, and hold corrupt foreign regimes accountable. So the next time an economist in a $3,000 suit goes on TV and tells you tariffs are bad, remember this. They're not worried about your grocery bill. They're worried about their globalist investments. And the next time the media cries about how tariffs are so damn dangerous, remember this. Truth is dangerous to liars. Tariffs are only dangerous to those profiting off of America's decline. Trump's tariffs worked. The economists were wrong. The media was wrong. And now he's about to prove them wrong all over again. Because evil never retreats without a fight. And neither does a man who knows he's fighting for the good of his country. So let's take a look at what he actually said about tariffs in this 2-week deal.
Yeah, Mr. President, you have a deadline coming up on trade in 2 weeks. Which countries, if any, on trade, on tariffs, sir, which countries, if any, are close to agreements with the administration?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal with probably 4 or 5 different countries. With the UK, it was a great deal for both. And we're in the process of making some others. But ultimately, in fact, Scott is here, and Howard Lutnick, these 2 guys have been doing an incredible job, and the people that work with them have been doing an incredible job. But, you know, we have 200 countries, you could say 200 countries plus. We can't do that. So at a certain point over the next week and a half or so, or maybe before, we're going to send out a letter. We talked to many of the countries, and we're just going to tell them what they have to pay to do business in the United States. And it's going to go very quickly. But some of the bigger countries, so India, I think we're going to reach a deal where we have the right to go in and trade. Right now it's restricted. You can't walk in there. You can't even think about it. We're looking to get a full trade barrier dropping, which is unthinkable. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But as of this moment, we've agreed to that, go into Indian trade. We're going to be trading in China. That's going to come a little bit down the road, but we're going to be trading in China. We have a lot of great things going, and we're getting along with countries, but some will be disappointed because they're going to have to pay tariffs. And we've taken in already hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. No inflation. The only problem we have is we have a Fed guy that doesn't understand what's happening, and it would be great if he'd lower the rate because we'd be able to borrow a lot cheaper.
And before I blaze, I want you to understand that there are some economists that have now done full 180s. Listen to what this reporter says. And Trump loves the question. He absolutely loves the question. Take a look.
Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because as you know, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
But Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in. I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems, there's so much money coming in and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. Calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in $88 billion in tariffs. They have so much money coming in. But more important than the money coming in, We have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Qatar. We went to UAE. Very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders. And we took in $5.1 trillion just there. Without the tariffs, I mean, they also liked a thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election. Now you have it go over it. But even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide. And they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, we're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because if I ever took the tariffs off, and we are going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody that, like this communist from New York, someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist.
And he's right. Listen, in 1993, Bill Clinton signed a law that made communism legal. Look it up. It actually happened. Communism was illegal in the United States of America, and socialism is just a lighter form of it. So, yeah, you got people now that are out there just openly saying that they're communists, and they're holding, get-togethers. Many of the people in the Democratic ticket actually belong to the DSA, or they're called the Democratic Socialists of America. Now you have an open communist running for office in New York. And I think that the law should be changed again. We should be, listen, communism cannot coexist with our Constitution. It just can't. So yes, it should be made illegal again. It should be 100% illegal for a communist to hold office in the United States. And then they're asking Trump questions about the balance of power and essentially saying, well, is it a bad thing for you to have this concentration of power in the White House? And that's not the way it's intended to be. Take a listen to the question.
You say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive.
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
So that's exactly what it is, folks. Is the Constitution is finally being enforced. That's why I called the show The Return of the Republic. We're going back to what our founding fathers intended this country to be. And instead of these bureaucrats and these leftists out there yelling, he's stomping on democracy, he's getting rid of democracy. No, he's not. Or maybe he is actually getting rid of democracy, because we are not a democracy. We are a republic, and a constitutional republic. It operates very differently from pure democracy. So we should never intend, and fight to our dying breath to make sure that this country never becomes a pure democracy. It would be an evil thing for that to happen, a very evil thing. And, does Trump hold all the cards is the next question. Now, as the president, does he hold all the cards? Does he get to act like a king? I mean, listen to this question.
President, a question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that. But this is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state, or a liberal judge, or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years, because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country. Should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country. And we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
So what he said is exactly right. And don't forget where we started off with. You had five district judges, 5 out of the entire country. were able to hold up the will of the people for the entire country. Not people suing in court for themselves, where a case is being heard and decided on. These judges were acting like kings. And the crazy part is, on the left, they're out there holding these get-togethers, these rallies and demonstrations in the street, arguing no kings, looking at Trump instead of the judges who are actually legislating from the bench and acting like kings, overruling the will of the voter, overruling the will of the people, overruling the will of the president who we elected to do the things that you see him doing right now. So, Patriots, as we close out this episode of the Patriots Prayer Podcast today, I want you to see the bigger picture. Today, we talked about the Supreme Court finally standing up and saying judges can't rule this entire nation from one bench anymore. We talked about parents reclaiming their God-given authority over their children, refusing to let them be brainwashed by twisted ideologies in public schools. And we talked about Trump's tariffs. How the so-called experts told you that they'd destroy everything. But instead, inflation has dropped to zero, and America started standing on its own 2 feet again. What do all these things have in common? They prove that the experts, the elites, and the ruling class have been wrong about everything that truly matters. They prove that the people who call themselves your betters, the people who build their careers mocking your faith, your freedom, and your values, they don't know truth when it's staring them right in the face. Because here's what they forget. Truth doesn't come from a Harvard degree. It comes from the Word of God. Wisdom doesn't come from a think tank in DC. It comes from fearing the Lord. And real power doesn't come from black robes, media towers, or bureaucratic titles. It comes from the courage to stand up and say, this is far, no further at all. This is as far as you get to go. That's what Trump did. That's what he did with tariffs. That's what he did with the parents. That's what he did to the courts. What he finally did was he returned the constitutional order to this nation. But hear me, Patriots, this fight is far from over. Once again, evil never retreats willingly. The enemy doesn't fold because we win a court ruling or pass a tariff. It shifts. It changes form. It hides in new policies, new mandates, and new cultural campaigns to reassert its grip. That's why we must stay vigilant. That's why we must stay in prayer, because at the end of the day, no Supreme Court decision, no president, no economic policy will save this nation. Only God can do that. But God calls men and women like you and like me to stand, to speak, to fight, and to pray without ceasing. Because it is written, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. That is the promise. That's the assignment. That's why we keep going. So as you step back into your world today, remember this truth. We don't fight because victory is guaranteed by politicians. We fight because victory is guaranteed by the cross. I'm Eddie Smith, and this is the Patriots Prayer Podcast. Stay vigilant, stay prayerful, and stand your ground, because evil will never retreat without a fight. But when God's people stand in truth, darkness never wins. Until next time, God bless you. and God bless America. Thank you for watching the Patriots Prayer Podcast. Don't forget to catch us on Q Broadcast. We're under the news category right there located with all the other big guys. Thanks to you. And please, guys, check out our sponsors, shopwithamerica.us and fromthefarm.org. Guys, have a great night. See you soon.
Welcome to the Patriots Prayer Podcast, where truth has no filter and darkness doesn't get a pass. We expose the evil they hide to government corruption, from deep state deception to the sick agenda of global elites. While the Mockingbird media stays silent, we speak up, we show the receipts, and we pull back the curtain on everything they don't want you to see. If you want the truth they're terrified of, you're in the right place.